The Nationals just added a big, impactful player with Eli Willits back in July after selecting him with the first overall pick. But would Paul Toboni select Eli Willits as the number one guy?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. But later on in today's program, the Nationals have interviewed a wild card manager. Like when reading that report just a few days ago, I was kind of thinking like, that can't be true. Well, it is true. So let's discuss that later on in the show today. In the second segment, the Nationals are going to have some roster moves to make relatively soon because the Rule 5 MLB Draft is coming up soon, and they've got a handful of guys that you're like, yeah, I don't want to lose them. And I think the Nationals will lose them if they do not secure them. So we'll have that discussion and why the Nationals really need to hone in on that as we get going in today's show. But I start off discussing why I still believe that Paul Toboni would have selected Eli Willits with that number one overall pick. I'll tell you more about that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. So Eli Willits is, in my opinion, still the number one pick, even if Paul Toboni were to go in this past year, and let's say he was hired before the draft, and he was going to be the one to make that selection at the number one overall pick. I still believe it would have been Eli Willits. I think Eli Willits, kind of with what we know now, is a fair, good number one pick. You might think to yourself, and you might see his slot value, and the Nationals, quote unquote, cutting a deal with him. And you're right. They're not necessarily like going for the best talent and someone with the highest ceiling. That was Ethan Holiday. But I do believe that his ceiling is still very high, but also more importantly, his floor is very high. I think at the very least, Eli Willits is looking at being a very good player in baseball. This is someone who's going to be elite defensively. This is someone who has the capability and the ability to really do anything at the plate. A switch hitting hitter who can hit from both sides of the plate, someone who has shown some power at times, but really has been a stud defender at shortstop. Going back to the MLB Draft, the debate for the Nationals, I think, was between Cade Anderson, the left-handed pitcher from LSU, and Eli Willits. But also furthermore than that, it was also with Ethan Holiday. Ethan Holiday was a obviously very interesting guy. He was the number one overall prospect according to MLB.com. And Ethan Holiday is mega talented, 65 grade power as an 18-year-old, someone who can run. He might not stick at shortstop, but he is obviously a great prospect who worked his way up to low A Stillwater for the Colorado Rockies there. And this season looked okay in 18 games. But I still think that Toboni would have gone with the Eli Willits selection. When you are scouting and when you have this way of drafting, I think of it a lot like dating. You've got your own type that you know that you're like, oh, I'm into this. Paul Toboni likes high school shortstops that are really kind of just getting to the best of their game. This is an organization with the Red Sox that obviously drafted a ton of talent throughout the years and under Paul Toboni, but they have those profiles that you're like, oh, this makes sense. Roman Anthony, not a shortstop, but still someone with power from the high school ranks, someone who's a very raw prospect. They put him in the organization and he thrived. Marcelo Mayer, someone who wasn't necessarily the rawest of prospects. He fell to them in the MLB draft, and the Boston Red Sox jumped all over him, and he's turned into be a great player up in the bigs. Other guys out there, Christian Campbell, you've seen guys come through their drafts and all sorts of different things. Like Paul Toboni has a type when he is really scouting and what he wants to see from his younger prospects. I think Eli Willits fits that mold. And if you were to tell me that, oh, well, I think he probably would have said the same thing about Ethan Holiday. You're right, but what is the value in the Washington Nationals taking Ethan Holiday over Eli Willits? These are real discussions that I think you have to have, especially with that number 1 overall pick. The one thing that Eli Willits is, really two things that he is unequivocally better than with Ethan Holiday is number 1, defense. And number 2, he's a better overall hitter, in my opinion. I think Eli Willits has that same projection as like a Dylan Cruz type. So who's going to not necessarily hit for power, but he's going to hit for average. He's going to think middle. He's going to get a lot of doubles, a lot of triples. He'll be able to steal bases. But oh, by the way, he'll also be able to play Gold Glove caliber defense over at shortstop. That's the kind of dream scenario that we have here with Eli Willits. And also, I just said like Ethan Holiday might be the toolsier guy. I think you can make that same argument for Eli Willits. So many guys nowadays across different organizations, you see them go into a system with, let's say, no power. Someone that has like 45 grade power as a 17, 18-year-old out of high school. And everyone's kind of like, okay, I don't really understand this pick. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they make a swing change. They have a different approach. They go through the system. They go through the development process that a team has their young players go through. And all of a sudden, this guy's hitting 20 home runs over 100 games. Those are real things that happen within organizations. I think Nationals fans out there may just forget that point. Like, yes, there are teams out there that can develop prospects. There are teams out there that can take guys who may have a weakness and make it their strength. I'm not here to tell you that Eli Willits is going to be some power hitter down the road. I don't think that. But I also don't think that he's going to have zero power for the rest of his life. And oh, by the way, I still think this guy has relatively decent power. Like, he's not going to hit 30 home runs. At least I don't think at this point. But he did show that he does have a little bit of pop. He's had some high exit velos. He squares up the baseball. He's got incredible bat speed. Like, these are all real things that could develop into a power type hitter. I'm not saying, again, that he is going to be a 40 home run guy. That's unrealistic. But to say that he will never have power, I think is silly. You look at what Paul Toboni does. This is someone who has a player development background, and he said as much in his introductory press conference. He said that he wants a player development monster. Well, you have got yourself an incredible case study here with Eli Willits. This is someone who, in my opinion, has a high floor. He'll be able to rise up into the major leagues pretty quickly, I think. I believe that he's going to be a stud defensive shortstop, number 1. But number 2, he is a great hitter and has some raw power. You can tap into that if you do have that player development monster. I feel good about the Nationals under Eli Willits still. And we kind of just forget about this selection because it wasn't the sexiest draft class. Like, this is no 2010 draft class with Bryce Harper and all the other big names across this is not 2009 with Steven Strasburg as your number 1 overall pick. This was a class that we did not know who was going number 1 up until a minute before the pick was selected. This is something that I think the Nationals will be a lot better at moving forward. They will have a type when it comes to prospects. Under Mike Rizzo, it was the right-handed pitcher who throws 100 miles per hour. Those guys, unfortunately, did not do too well all the time here in DC. You've seen some good things, like obviously Travis Sakura was one of them. I think the Nationals have a few guys in their system as well who have really developed into nicely in that role. But the Toboni type, in my mind, is going to be this Eli Willits kind of figure. And I think having an Eli Willits on this team and in this organization really kind of changes things and how the Nationals may approach different things going forward. So having that discussion surrounding Paul Toboni and surrounding Eli Willits, yes, I do believe that Eli Willits still would have been the number 1 overall pick. And I still believe that Eli Willits has the potential to be the best player from this 2025 MLB draft class. And it will be interesting to see the way that Toboni and the rest of this organization kind of handles Eli Willits. Will he start up in high A? Will they take their time with him down in Fredericksburg? And then will he get the push up later on in the season to high A Wilmington? Or will they try to fly this guy through the minor league system if they believe that he is ready? I think that's probably the bigger questions at hand right now. So keep your eye out for that. But I still do believe that Paul Toboni would have taken number 1 overall pick Eli Willits just like the Washington Nationals did. But the Washington Nationals and Paul Toboni, first test. The Nationals have got some guys who are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and there is one guy in particular that has to be protected. I'll tell you who that is after this. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and you and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action, and if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including those big states like California, Texas, and Georgia. So I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it keeps every game exciting. And I like picking my favorite players like Mahomes and Steph Curry to see how my predictions play out. And plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And we are back here on Locked On Nationals, and we have got a discussion about the managerial search, and the Nationals have interviewed someone that I had to really think about. And I'm not going to lie, I did not know this name. You might not know this name, but it's an interesting one. And will it actually happen? Let's discuss that later on in the show today. But right now, the Nationals have a few decisions to make, and they have got the most important one with Jake Bennett. Jake Bennett is down in the Arizona Fall League right now, and I don't know if people are really aware of this, but he is absolutely dealing in the Arizona Fall League. The 2022 second-round pick out of Oklahoma missed basically half of 2023 and all of 2024 recovering from Tommy John surgery, but he has come all the way back, and he has picked off right where he left off back in 2023 and has been a stud. We'll get more into Jake Bennett, but the Nationals did make some roster moves over the past few days, and they've got some really intriguing Rule 5 guys. And right now, the 40-man roster is actually at 41. It will be at 38 once the postseason is over with, and guys like DeYoung and Josh Bell and Derek Law, they'll get it down to roughly around 38 players once the postseason is over with. And also Shinisoki Alguswara and, of course, CJ Stubbs, they cleared waivers and have been outrighted to AAA Rochester. And guys like Mason Thompson and Eduardo Salazar have elected free agency, so they are no longer with this team. But this is going to open up spots for the Rule 5 draft. This is also going to open up spots for guys that they have to protect from the Rule 5 draft. And the number one guy that you have to protect is Jake Bennett. He is Rule 5 draft eligible. And before jumping into kind of just what makes a guy Rule 5 draft eligible. Number one, this is just one of those things where honestly I hate, because it's an annual event where teams can select players from other organizations who are no longer on their 40-man roster. And it leaves them up to the point where if you do select someone in the Rule 5 draft, you have to keep him on your 26-man roster for the rest of the season. And this is something that happens in December, but they have to be on your active roster and be with that active roster all the way through game 162, and then you have the option to send him down to AAA, and then he's yours in your organization. And if you do decide to move off them, then you can DFA them, but you will be penalized with potentially losing a draft pick. But this right now, Jake Bennett is like, I'm not worried about this. If the Nationals were to not protect him at this point, it would be serious questions surrounding this front office. Like, I genuinely do think that, because I think Jake Bennett is one of those guys where you could really see him making an impact, not just this season, but beyond 2026. Right now, Jake Bennett, he is leading the AFL, the Arizona Fall League, in strikeouts and innings pitched as of yesterday. Like, this is someone who has dominated the Arizona Fall League so far. And we have seen this from him. In 19 appearances this year, he had a 2.27 ERA and 75 and a third innings pitch. He's had 64 strikeouts. He has a 108 whip, and he has looked the part to being a very good pitcher down the road. The Nationals need pitching. We understand that. And when it comes to the Nationals and kind of what they have done well as of recent, they have done well with developing pitching, and especially left-handed pitching. I think DJ Hers, Mitchell Parker was a success story at times here. Andrew Alvarez looked good. Like, the Nationals have had a thing for left-handed pitching, and Jake Bennett is just the latest product. But here's the thing that's even more encouraging, is that you have someone who, in my mind, Paul Toboni, is going to come here and be a lot better at developing these prospects. He will have a system in place that allows them to thrive and take advantage of certain things and have data right there on the iPads in the minor league dugouts. Like, these are things that the Nationals haven't had in years past, and they've kind of just operated without them. What can Jake Bennett do now with an organization that actually believes in these things? I think you'll find that out, because I do believe that they will add Jake Bennett. So I'm not worried about them potentially losing Bennett at this point. I think one guy up for debate that is kind of interesting in this is Christian Franklin. Christian Franklin was obviously traded from the Cubs to the Nats this year. He was involved in that Michael Soroka deal that sent him to the Cubs, and Christian Franklin, one of their top outfielding prospects, to the Washington Nationals. And he looked really good down in AAA Rochester. But as we know now, the Nationals have a logjam of outfielding prospects. You have got guys like Christian Vaquero down in the younger levels. You have got guys up in the majors and up in the minors that you're like, I can't move off of any of these guys. I think Christian Franklin, if I were the Nationals today, I would be shopping one of these outfielders and trying to make moves, because you are not in a place to lose any prospect that could be something down the road. And Christian Franklin fits that mold for me. I'm not willing to separate from Franklin at this point. I'm not saying that he's going to play a big role for the Nationals in 2026, but I'm not willing to just let him go through the Rule 5 draft. Like, that is pointless to me. And maybe a team out there is like, listen, we know this is someone that's probably not in the cards for the future. We know that you might trade him down the road, so we're not going to trade for him because he's going to be Rule 5 draft eligible, and we might be able to get a Christian Franklin kind of player. There's a real chance that that could be happening for a team out there, and the Nationals might just move off him. And I think that when you have a lot of these prospects who are major league ready, but are just kind of sitting down there in the minors, that's kind of the point of the Rule 5 draft. Like, you lose players like that. If I'm the Nationals, I'm doing anything that I can to protect him. But if it's going to get in the way of some short-term and long-term plans of what you have and to get done here, then maybe you do move off Christian Franklin and maybe you leave him unprotected and just hope for the best that no one drafts him. But I think the tools that he has, someone who is major league ready, someone who has showed the ability to hit for average and hit for a little bit of power and is solid defensively, I think someone like that really just kind of screams like a team out there like the Rockies, let's say, a team out there like, let's say, maybe the Twins are like, we could do this and we could use this as at least a fourth outfielder and someone that gives us an opportunity to come off the bench. So I think Christian Franklin is one of those guys where he's on the fence. And if it were up to me, I would do everything I can to protect him because he might be a trade asset. He might be helping this team as a fourth outfielder. Maybe it's something else in the cards for him. But I'm not willing to just part ways with him and not protect him. So I'm hoping with the 2 extra roster spots, the Nationals are definitely going to protect Jake Bennett. If not, I've got serious questions. And the number 2, I think you do eventually get to Christian Franklin, select him, and make sure that he's protected as well. But I would not be surprised to see a trade. I would not be surprised to see a kind of moving of some of these prospects and sees what ultimately happens. But the Nationals are doing some interesting things, as we know, and things are going to be different under Paul Toboni. Well, they just interviewed a manager that is very different. I'll discuss that after this. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. And plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. And it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push like last night. Thunder, Wizards. I had the Thunder on the money line. And of course, yes, they hit it. And yes, the Wizards, they looked good. They had Keyshawn George play well again. They had Alex Sarr play well again. He recorded more rebounds than what I thought he would. So yes, that gave the Wizards a chance, but also made me have more fun with our friends at FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. If you have not done so already, look up Locked On Nationals on YouTube and wherever you get your pods. But the Nationals have interviewed a very interesting candidate to be their next manager. That is Portland Sea Dogs AA manager, Chad Epperson. Chad Epperson, at first I'm like, I'm sorry, let me do a double take here. Are the Nationals interviewing minor league managers? Well, I do think that coming from guys who are, other organizations, like, here's how I read into this. I think that Chad Epperson is a good manager, and I've actually seen a lot of Boston Red Sox people say this would be a big loss for the organization. And I'm sure of it. Like, the Boston Red Sox have had a ton of development under them. And yes, the Portland Sea Dogs have been a great organization down in AA, and they have had a ton of winning and a ton of success. And in particular, they have been a great player development team. But I read into this saying, okay, he might be in the mix from the Nationals managerial mix. But then I think about it this way. Paul Toboni has spoken so brightly about just how he wants to be a personality-driven organization. Like, he cares a lot about someone's characteristics, how they are, their background, and that's a good thing to have. I think that in my mind, the way that I read this interview, not knowing too much about Chad Epperson, is this could be Paul Toboni saying, this is my guy. I really like him. I'd love for you to be inside the Nationals organization, but this is just him kind of propping up one of his guys. That's the way that I read this interview, because that does happen. And when someone like Toboni, who's a nice guy and wants to give nice guys out there credit, maybe that's just what it is. But also, maybe the Nationals genuinely think that this is someone who could be a major league manager. Like, he has had success with the Portland Sea Dogs so far. And if you go back to some of the different things out there, like, yes, they haven't won a ton of games here, but this is still someone who has really been a big part in player development. A lot of different guys have done very well at the AA level there for the Boston Red Sox. So maybe there is something to the coach that he is. And this is something that, again, Toboni did speak a lot about in his intro press conference. Like, this was someone who really, really made a key emphasis on coaching, on characters, and just their different backgrounds. Like, this is someone who cares about the things that maybe some other GMs out there might not care too much about. So maybe Chad Epperson is just one of the best coaches in minor league baseball. Forgive me for not knowing. I do not know what the Portland Sea Dogs AA manager is, but I do find this interesting. And I do think this outside the box approach is really good for this team. You are getting different intel and different ideas. And yes, Toboni is obviously very familiar with Chad Epperson being the manager since 2021 with them. But this is since 2022 rather. But this was a very outside the box approach. And I found it really interesting that the Nationals are giving him an opportunity to be the next manager. And maybe they give him an offer. You never know. This is something that I think would surprise a lot of people. But the Red Sox have been known to do stuff like this. And I do believe that you will see a lot of guys maybe get opportunities that you might not expect. And if that's coming from a AA manager making the jump to be the manager of a big league ball club, maybe that's the next thing. Who knows? Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. But I will catch you guys on the flip side. Happy Halloween, go trick-or-treating, and also go Nats.